Welcome to the first installment of the Conversion Optimization Masterclass. I'm Brian Massey, and I'm going to be your instructor. Now, the first question you're probably asking is, what's with the lab coat? Well, it's not a gimmick. It's not an accident for sure. I don't wear it just because of its slimming effects. I wear it because science told me to. There's an arm of study called enclothed cognition. And it is the study of the systematic influence that clothes have on the wearer and the people around him. And the scientists have specifically studied the lab coat. And here's what they found. When I'm wearing a lab coat, I'm going to score significantly higher on cognitive tests than if I'm wearing my street clothes. And this is interesting too, because if I put on the lab coat and I'm told it's an art schmuck, I won't score as well on those cognitive tests, but I will rate myself higher as a creative person. That's very interesting. So when I put the lab coat on, I essentially think I'm smarter than I really am. And the scientists have also studied the effects of uniforms on people. And somebody in a uniform carries more weight. The people who are listening to them will take what they say with more importance. They'll believe it. They'll be more willing to act on it. So when I'm wearing the lab coat, not only do I think I'm smarter than I am, but you think I'm smarter than I am. This is just an example of how we can use behavioral science to our advantage. This is a win-win for me. What I'm going to do for you today and for the rest of this master class is I'm going to show you how to use science to get this unfair advantage as well. How to use science in your everyday decisions. Whether you're a marketer, a business owner, a product manager, experimentation is the name of the game. And with just a few simple pointers, I know I can have you there making decisions every day instead of guessing. And for those of you that got into marketing for the creative side of things, who got into it because you really wanted to communicate and connect with people, the good news is that data will actually let you be more creative. It will let you take more chances. This behavioral data is like a safety net under what you're doing. Today I'm going to talk about why behavioral science is changing the shape of the way we design marketing campaigns. One of the most important things I'm going to cover today is why this behavioral data is fundamentally changing our design process. Why it's changing the way that we design campaigns and websites and web pages, ads and emails, and even social media content. I'm going to show you why this is so important that more of us in marketing and communications, product management, business management are schooled in the ways of science. You are aware that you're involved in a conversion optimization masterclass, and the data is at the heart of that. That says something about you. Now, I could have called this how to make $1 million designing high converting landing pages. Might have even had more students than I've already got, but they would have been the wrong students. There is no one in this class that can't do science in the service of their visitors and their customers. No one. I've just seen it too many times. When we've been working with a customer for a while, we send the team a lab coat. We say they've earned their lab coat, and we have sent hundreds of them now. You can do this. So why are things different? Why is there going to be a fundamental shift in the way you design your campaigns after you take this class? In 1965, a guy named Gordon Moore wrote a paper, and in it he postulated that the number of transistors we can fit onto a microchip would double every year. Now, the semiconductor people were really happy about this because this would mean that the chips would become twice as fast and would cost half as much to manufacture. There were naysayers, but decades later, we have Moore's law still in effect. The number of transistors that you can fit on a chip is doubling about every 18 months, even at geometries that are approaching the size of atoms. So what does this have to do with marketing? How is this affecting communications? Well, Gordon's law has driven some technologies that we can now take advantage of. For example, we have cloud computing, we can now, for just a few pennies, requisition a server in the cloud. We don't have to go out and buy boxes and big racks of space and shove them in and cool them and maintain them. No. Entrepreneurs are now using this cloud computing to create amazing testing tools, which I'm going to be sharing with you throughout this masterclass. And the sensors, like in our laptops. The quality of the webcam that's in a typical laptop is incredible. So incredible, in fact, that we can now do eye tracking studies with people instead of using expensive infrared cameras. These are just a few of the examples that are enabling us to do more, give us better tools, and allow us to experiment faster, more easily, and more cheaply than we ever could. We're in a world of abundant behavioral data. Now, back in the old days, when behavioral data was hard to come by, when we had to requisition a room and bring in a bunch of people and ask them questions, study them for a day, we had to hire expensive researchers to go out and do market research for us. Data wasn't that abundant. And the design approach reflected that. We would do all this research, use that to inform our decisions as the whole team then went out and created the copy and the designs, the positioning, and how we're going to talk about our products, how we're going to design our campaigns, media, everything was driven from this initial bunch of expensive research. In other words, a lot of people had to make assumptions based on that large body of initial research. That's when it's hard to come by. That's when it's expensive. We don't have to do that anymore. Unfortunately, we've hung on to that same design process, even though data isn't scarce anymore. Whenever we're going to do a website redesign, or whenever we're going to do a new campaign, we tend to start off doing a whole bunch of research at the beginning and then making a lot of decisions based on that research throughout the design process. This can have unhappy consequences. Let me give you an example. In 2014, a British retailer called Marks & Spencer launched a new website. They'd spent 2 years on it and 150 million British pounds. It's about 180 million US dollars. That's a lot of cheddar. In 2013, I checked their financials, and 13% of the revenue of this 10 billion British pound company was done through the website. That makes it about a $1.5 billion online business. So the $180 million might have been justified. When they launched, the UX community said, I think that this might work. Everything looks pretty good to us. The customers had a different opinion. After the launch of the site, there was an 8% drop in sales. They were losing $10 million a month. And that doesn't count the loss of brand value in the marketplace, the disappointed people that came to that site. So what happened here? I wasn't there. I don't know specifically, but I can speculate that the agency went through the traditional old-style design process in which they did a whole lot of research on the front end and then made a whole lot of assumptions, tens of thousands of assumptions about what should be on the site, how it should be presented, what it should say, what the brand positioning should be, all done without testing. And so they were surprised when this incredible investment rolled out the door and started reducing sales. This isn't an isolated occurrence either, although disclosure of these sorts of things is pretty rare. In 2012, Finish Line launched a new website right before the holiday shopping season. Here's what it looked like on November the 12th. And here's what it looked like on November the 19th. Quite a change. Completely different look and feel. Very stylized. Not a lot of copy, only really relying on pictures to carry the mail, emphasis on content marketing. Very, very fancy. You would think that this would be a big win for them. Well, it didn't work out so well because they had lost $3 million within the first few weeks of launching this website. It wasn't good for the executives involved either. And they were smart enough at least to have saved an old copy of the site on a server somewhere so that when it became too painful they could simply relaunch the old site and it went back to the way it was. But again, the culprit was an agency with a great idea, collected some data, made some assumptions, but you can get that an agency very excited about their new design could foster a little confirmation bias. In other words, they see in the data the things they want to see because they're so excited about their cool new shoe pictures. This is the old design process. Launch and see. We do a bunch of research at the beginning, we make a whole lot of assumptions throughout the development process, and it's only at the end, when we launch the thing, after we spent the whole budget, that we can really get some good behavioral data. It's called launching. In a world where data is abundant, like we live in now, the design process changes. Sure, we want to start off with that kind of research on the beginning. We want to develop those personas. We want to do the marketing studies. We want to do the questionnaires. We want to have a good idea of the direction that we want to go with this. But instead of doing it all at once and that being the last we do, we get to test our way, experiment our way into the right solution. So we start off with our research and then we discuss how we're going to position it. And from there, we do a study of the different kinds of copy that could drive that point home. Then we have the final copy. We can do an image study. Choose several images that we believe communicates on a page for the brand in general and study, find out which of those images is going to have the greatest impact. Wireframes. This is usually where design agencies start. Hey, we're redesigning the website. Oh, we'll give you some wireframes before positioning and before copy. Wireframes come later. Now we start talking about how we're going to present the information, the copy, and the images that we've developed on each of these pages so that we can deliver the best result. Designers should be like draftsmen. They should be guiding the visitor's eyes to the important parts of the page. We can persuade with copy. We can persuade with images. We cannot persuade with design. All we can do is make the copy and images more persuasive or less persuasive. So wireframes, then we study the layout. We can do some eye tracking studies to make sure that visitors' eyes are getting the important information on each of those pages. Then we do mock-ups. Now that we have mock-ups, we can start compiling data from panels and seeing which is going to really move the needle the most. If there's a significant difference between two mock-ups, we want to go with the winner, right? Bring that all together, do the final draft, launch the campaign, launch the website, and then we can start collecting that delicious behavioral data that is based on our visitors to our website. This is the new design metaphor. This is the new way. And I hesitate to call it the new way because we're using old techniques that direct mail marketers have been using for decades, but we're using it in a way that reinforces our entire design process and doesn't make us reliant on a few copywriters, designers, creative directors, and UX people. What we're going to do and what I'm going to show you how to do in this masterclass is expand the sample size of the decision makers involved in your design process. And we're going to do it while saving money and saving time. Can you imagine that? I hope you can. Here's an example of a company that took this design process to heart. They wanted to rebrand. Wasp Barcode sells inventory and asset tracking software to other businesses. Their primary call to action was get a demo. Talk to one of our salespeople, because when that happened, they sold a lot more software. They wanted the brand, though, to be refreshed. They didn't like the old stodgy brand and felt that they could really look more modern and support sales in the efforts that they were making. Over the time we worked with them, they designed a brand that was vibrant and new and fresh. To give you an idea of how we did this, here are the steps that we went through in redesigning several of the important pages on their site. We started off by designing a landing page for some of their paid search ads. We wanted to learn from that traffic without affecting the rest of the site. And what we learned from that, we brought over to the first product on their site. a few trial and errors there, and we moved on to their demo landing form. And we were able to test that to significant increases. So we took what we learned there and brought it over to the other product pages. By that time, we were confident enough to really change the homepage, and it gained an entirely new look and feel. We took another swing at a bolder design, and on each of the pages found those combinations that worked. Now, not all of them did. We were able to walk away from those that didn't. But this is the power of the design process that we're talking about. Data-driven design. For some reason, I don't like that. Data-driven design. It isn't data-driven. It's creative-driven, supported by data. The other beauty of a campaign that is pretty complex like this is that you get to start winning early on. For a website design process, you spend months working on the site, and then you launch all your assumptions at once. When you do an evolutionary design like this, when you use new design metaphors, you get to start winning as you're going. So in the case of Wasp Barcode, we increased their leads by 250% within 3 months of starting the redesign, not even being done. So as we learned, we improved, and you can expect the same thing to happen to you. At the heart of all this is ideas, and we tend to discard our ideas when we don't think we're going to be able to convince somebody that holds the purse strings that they're good ideas. When we look back at the campaigns that really moved us, the things maybe that got us into communication and marketing and maybe even into entrepreneurship, those were daring, unexpected, and, well, who would have known if they would have worked? They saw the light of day because they were the boss's idea, or there was the force of sheer will of some person's personality that pushed them through the organization. For every one of those amazing campaigns, there are thousands of campaigns that failed. Intuition can only get us so far. I'm going to encourage you to start collecting all of the ideas that you have and all of the ideas that your organization has and all of the ideas that you're going to be generating as you go through this masterclass. I'm going to even give you the spreadsheet. Visit this URL, grab the spreadsheet, keep it around on your computer, anywhere you need, so that when those ideas come, you can write them down. Just enter them into the hypothesis column on the spreadsheet. When the boss comes in and says, I think we need a website refresh, you can say, I will make sure that we write that down, because when you start drilling down and turning these ideas into hypotheses that you can collect data on, you realize that there's a whole lot more under that. You have to start asking questions like, really, what makes you think that? This is where data starts to create a little bit of a fence. Now, when I say a fence, you might think, oh, well, there's something that's going to block creativity. There's something that's designed to keep things out. There's something that's designed to keep things the same. But if I tell you a story of a group of children playing in a field, a wide open field, and one of them says, hey guys, I heard that there was a golden globe in the field somewhere, and if we find it, we'll be rich. What are the children going to do? Well, they're going to travel around in a little clump close together. They come back the next summer to the same field, but it's been fenced in. Well, let's say that the rancher fenced it in. The guy says, we should look for the golden globe again. They're going to expand out, all of them, to the edges of the fence, because that creates a space in which they can feel safe expanding into. And this is what data is going to do for you and your team. It's going to allow them to expand, but not into dangerous territory. The data gives us really good guidance as to how creative we can be and will free us up. So collect all of your ideas, put them into the spreadsheet. We're going to talk about those ideas on our call this week and start to understand how we put these into categories and buckets that we can use to prioritize them. Let's talk about the kind of hypotheses that we'll see in a typical digital campaign. The first bucket is messaging and value proposition. This is anything that has to do with the words and images that we use to convey a message. Now, by images, I mean everything from stock photos to video to animations, anything that's going to convey a value proposition on a landing page, on a website, in an ad. All of these things need the support of a strong value proposition. On a website, your value proposition is combined with the offer, get 10% off shoes, but it's also composed of your return policy, your shipping policy, your guarantees, and anything that makes you special. Are you the low-cost leader? Are you the high-quality leader? Do you have the largest selection? These are all part of your value proposition. And any hypothesis that address the words and the images, the ways that you communicate your value proposition or the value proposition of a product or the value proposition of an offer on a landing page fall into this bucket, messaging and value proposition. The next bucket is layout and UX. As I hinted at earlier, this is the way that we present information on a page, in an ad, on a landing page, on a website, in an email. It's the layout. It's the UX. It's how the user can interface with the information. And it can span everything from how a simple blog page is laid out to convey the information in an article, all the way through to the checkout process or the sign-up process for your product or your online service. So very important that the right information be in the right place on the page, and that the designer has used their knowledge of positioning and juxtaposition and font and color and white space and negative space and all of those designery things that we respect them for in the service of communicating your value proposition. Credibility and authority. How good a job are you at conveying that you are a credible company, that this is a credible product, and that you are an authority in your niche? Anytime we talk about how long we've been in business, anytime we talk about how many customers we've served, we are building credibility and authority. This is where proof becomes very important. So, even the design is important for communicating credibility and authority. We tend to give this bucket a little bit too much weight because most of the money we spend on a website goes into the design. The design can only get us so far. Social proof. What social proof do you have? What evidence do you have that other people have used your products and been very, very happy with them? On an e-commerce site, typical social proof is ratings and reviews. On other sites, testimonials. Have you won any awards? Are you a member of associations? These are all the things that can convey in your campaigns that other people have used you and loved you. Finally, security and risk reversal. Hypotheses in this category speak to how secure I feel, how confident I feel. And it's everything from ensuring that if I give you my credit card, it's not going to get hacked, to if I make a bad decision, do I have any recourse, and what's it going to cost me? So when you've started putting ideas into your spreadsheet, we're going to want to put them into one of these 5 buckets. And there's a column in the spreadsheet already there, configured for you to drop this information beside each of those ideas. We'll call them hypotheses later after we've done a little work on them. So, is this hypothesis related to messaging and value proposition? Is it related to the UX and the layout? Is it related to authority and credibility? Is it related to social proof? Or is it related to security and risk reversal? This will start to give you a clue, number one, as to what people think the problem on your website is. And it will also give you a clue as to where you should start prioritizing hypotheses, ideas for your next experiment. We'll get there. Don't worry about it. The homework for today is to start filling out this sheet and coming with 5 hypotheses in each of these categories. If you're stuck, just pick 5 in each of these areas. You may need to wander around and say, hey, what are your ideas for this campaign? Or what are your ideas for improving the website? Your team's going to love being heard. They're going to love the thought that their ideas have shown up on a spreadsheet somewhere and that they won't be forgotten. And you're going to love that you get to hang on to these ideas, even the crazy ones. You cannot do any vetting of these ideas. Go ahead and put the crazy ones on there. We're going to go through a process that's going to ensure that the good ideas bubble to the top. And by good, I mean those most likely to generate more revenue. And that those that aren't boil to the bottom. Are you excited? All right. We'll see you on the call this week. The schedule is in your email. And be ready to talk about the ideas that you've started collecting and any insights you have from what buckets they're falling into.